attending students, before we begin, I would like to take time to thank my mentor, Mr. Short, for guiding me through the reflections process. This summer, I took a trip to Maine with my family and grandparents. It was a long journey to Bar Harbor, which is very close to Acadia National Park. We went on many hikes in the park, always accompanied by our dog Fergus. We went fishing in a bay and walked around in the rock pools. I saw bald eagles, porpoises, wild turkeys, and lobsters. I really enjoy being out in nature and find it calming. This trip was also a great bonding time with my family. During our long walks together, we talked a lot and caught up on how everyone has been doing, and I hear about what's happening at my parents' work. It is especially nice to spend time with my grandparents. They live in Florida, so I don't often get to spend time with them. During the trip, I ended up talking with my grandfather about our family history. I asked my grandpa about his mother's, my great-grandmother's, story. I'm sharing her story with you now because it is something I've been reflecting on ever since I first heard it. In September 1939, 84 years ago, World War II began when the Germans invaded Poland. Weeks later, they broke in Poland's capital, Warsaw. My great-grandmother was living there with her family. She was 15 when this happened, but she still knew her family would not be safe there. She organized a walking party to escape to Russia and was able to convince her brother to come with her. The rest of her family did not think anything extraordinarily bad would happen, and so they chose to stay behind. Sadly, a few days before they were going to leave for Russia, her brother was hit in the leg with shrapnel and could not go with her. She left for Russia with around 30 other people, leaving her family behind. When she got to the safety of Russia, she ended up in a kolkhoz, a type of collective farm. The people that lived on these farms received very little food, and she almost died of hunger, but somehow she was able to make it through the end of the war. In 1945, following the war, all the Polish refugees were sent back to Poland. My great-grandma then discovered her parents and brother had died in the Jewish ghetto where they were confined, most likely due to starvation. Her family, tragically, was among 6 million Jews who were killed by the Nazis and their helper during World War II. This is called the Holocaust. It was after the war when my great-grandma met my great-grandpa. They moved into their town of Wrocław, Poland, where my grandpa and his brother were born. After the war, my great-grandma did not feel safe in Poland and wanted to raise her children somewhere else. They moved to Israel soon after with the ultimate goal of moving to the United States. My grandpa's uncle was already living in the US at the time and was helping them get a visa. My grandpa was 12 years old when their family got the travel visa, sailed to the United States, and moved into New York City with the help of his uncle. My great-grandma started working in a sweatshop. My great-grandpa worked as an orderly in a nursing home. Ultimately, they were able to make a life for themselves here in the United States. When I hear this story, I was struck by the contrast between the experience I was having over the summer to what my great-grandmother lived through. While I was going on a trip for fun, she went on a trip full of sadness and pain. I was going on beautiful hikes with my family, but she walked all the way to Russia for strangers. I thought about how my family came on the trip with me and how she had to leave her family to survive. Knowing my great-grandmother's story has put my whole life in a different light. I feel so lucky to have the life that I do. Though learning about the times my great-grandmother experienced is hard, I know it's important that I know what happened in the past. There's a saying you might know that says history repeats itself. The events that she lived through, though, should never be repeated. This is why it's important to tell history, both the good and the bad. If we don't, we risk reliving the worst parts of our history. While I value history, my favorite subject is science. I've always had an interest in science, especially biology and astronomy. Eventually, I want to work at NASA as an astrobiologist. I know the road to achieving this dream will be difficult, but I also know I have an ancestor who's faced a much more difficult journey. Knowing her story inspires me to believe in my own potential to overcome whatever challenges come in my way. Although I have never met her, I will never forget her story and how her strength and courage in the face of unimaginable hardship made my life possible. Thank you for listening.